Greetings, this is Ross Elgar, and you are watching Cards. What is Cards? And what? Well, Cards is a free to play collectible card game that I just came into on Steam. I'd seen an advertisement of it, and I got curious, and I thought, well, let's give this a try. Cards is a card game based on World War II, where all the Axis and Allies factions take place. Each has their own faction, and begin with a very simple tutorial as you're seeing be displayed here. And step by step the process, it begins a game immediately. Now there are, as you're watching this here and you're watching the tutorial, and you can see just how easy this is to play. It walks you through it firsthand. But you got the five factions: the United States, Great Britain, Russia against the Axis, the Japanese, and the Germans. And all of these units have historical basis. If you're familiar with war games in particular, this is going to seem very familiar to you. So you can see that each card has a particular value. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, there is a 1K. That is your point cost, which increases with each particular round. And there are cards that will help you increase that as well. But that helps you limit and what you can do each turn. And as you can see, there's an attack value, there's a defense value, and it's pointing right now to end the turn here, so it's kind of walking you through the steps. You are on a timer, and you start off basically with this tutorial where you're playing the AI, but then as you move on, you're encouraged to take on other players. Now, there are a couple of key things here that I really like about this game, and if you know me, I don't particularly like collectible card games um, in a tabletop setting, let alone an online setting. But there are a couple of great things going on about this particular game where I decided to really give this a try, and I very much enjoyed myself. In fact, I've been playing this quite a bit. I've done all five factions now. I've achieved some missions, and the gameplay is really solid. It's a one-on-one, as you can see here. So I'm just going with the AI, and kind of give you an idea here. Now, it's providing text message now, so I'm not going to comment too much on what's going on as you see here, but to kind of give you an overview of what I think about what I'm seeing here. I love the graphics on the cards. I love the background music. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Now, what I come to find out later is you can customize each card. You're given a faction of 40 cards, but then you can customize them too, and you can even add allies from any other nation. You would start with a deck of 40, but you could always add 12 cards from that, and then that would be your customized deck of cards, which really adds a great deal of strategy layer to the game. And there have been some really intense matches between opponents. Now, one thing you're not going to notice here, and then you might see in other videos, is that your interaction with your other player is limited to certain text message based options, which this is to prevent trolling, I suppose, but at the same time, I mean, it does allow you to kind of tell your opponent, oh, hey, that was a great move, or oh, that really hurt, and then if the other player sees so you do something silly, he can respond like, ha 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 ha, that was a mistake, basically. And there you can set up different options on that. You can say hello and be nice and courteous, or you can just be a jerk. Um, so, which is one of the things that I dislike about the game. I think that in a competitive game, you ought to have at least some level of fair play and courtesy. I'm never one for. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to kind of jab your opponent every now and then, but in a friendly way. But I think it can get out of hand, and so I don't like. I like that they limit the interaction, but I wish there was a little more. But at the same time, I wish they would encourage a little bit of shall we say, fair play a little bit. Uh, when it's very clear that you can winning, of course there is an option to surrender, and sometimes I can see the writing on the wall, or my opponent can see the writing on the wall that the game isn't going their way, and rather than just drag it out, I just will go ahead, or they will go ahead and just surrender. And that option is right up here. I'm going to move my mouse into the right here up here. You see the little wheel cog icon. You click on that, that gives you the option to surrender. And this is also great too if you get interrupted in the middle of the game. You need to you get called away from the missus. You got to run to the store or something, or you get a phone call. You can exit the game. Now, wait times in the queue are actually really, really good. Where I have spent many a time in games like World of Warships or World of Tanks, in a competitive environment where you're waiting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're not going to wait that long for a match. A minute and a half max in a competitive match, and then you're given an option to play the AI. Now, what is really great about Cards and what they have done is that if there are particular goals that you want to achieve in playing an opponent, but you're missing out, you don't miss out on achieving your goals if you win against the AI, which is a nice option. So if you're out for a good game, you want to win 3 games in a row, let's say, and you get a particular set of cards, which, by the way, there are achievements that you earn. Now, this game is mostly funded through what they call microtransactions. They do encourage you to purchase cards at reasonable prices. I mean, I've seen cards anywhere from $1.49 all the way up to $12.49, which is actually probably one of the most reasonable budgets. You can always purchase more, of course, but I mean, I think that's absolutely reasonable, but you don't have to. Just within the training sessions alone, you achieve things, and playing other players, you achieve accomplishments, and you're rewarded gold, which you can then turn in. Like every 10 gold, you can get an additional 5 cards, and they're random. So there's a collectible side to this. So if this were a tabletop game, then of course you would never have that option. You would have to spend money. And one of the reasons why I don't like collectible card games for that in that aspect is that I think it encourages a form of gambling, and I have seen this firsthand working at a game store where kids would come in and play Magic the Gathering, and they would just buy deck of cards after deck of cards, and they would literally get the shakes as they would open it up and see what was inside, and like, oh man, this pack of cards isn't going to do it. I gotta have another one. And anybody who plays that game understands that, yeah, there is a collectible side to it. There's a strategy side to it. And it's that aspect of gambling, I've got to get the next biggest thing, that really turns me off to that game. On the other side of it is that I just found the gameplay to be a bit boring. It didn't appeal to my interest, which is interesting considering that it's a fantasy game, and I typically like sci-fi and fantasy, but I'm also very much a history buff. And these particular cards are based on units that are historically based, and their tactics for each particular faction have some historical basis. For example, right now, as you see here through the tutorial, I'm playing the United States. The United States is very well-rounded. Strong in artillery, tanks, infantry, Air Force, and support, and there are particular orders that you go to achieve, like this one right here, which this is an order card. It has a 0 value, and it adds bonuses to the cards that you play. There are things like that. Now, like Great Britain is really keen on cards that improve defense of its units and defense of its citadel. Russia has an interesting concept, which is a bit of reverse of Great Britain, in that their cards will do damage to your opponent, or you can play cards that are really, but at the expense of your citadel, which is almost counterproductive. So there's kind of a historical basis for that because they were pulling out all the stops to try to stop the Axis advance, and they would often sacrifice enormous resources and people in order to ensure victory. Then you have the German faction, of course, which is all about the blitzkrieg tactics, and their cards are very much in that kind of play style. And Japan, which is very strong in infantry, not so much in tanks, but their play style is to be very aggressive from the outset. And they have a number of cards that will help you that. So each of these factions by themselves, there's a great mechanic here that works between play. And while it is possible to get a very good deck that's hard to beat, there's a random element in that the computer shuffles all the cards so that you never know what kind of card you're going to play next. And there are even cards that are available in some factions that give you the option to dispose of a card that you have played for a random card and you don't know what you're going to get. And so there's a little bit of chaos involved in it. But I very thoroughly enjoyed this game. I highly recommend it. Most of all, it's free. It's a lot of fun. And if you've got a half an hour and waiting to go somewhere, you can just hop on here, play a game or two, and then be done. I started playing this, and then I kind of went crazy. I think I played a good 4, 5, 6 hours straight before I called it quits. And that was just the training sessions alone. And then I got involved in player versus player, and that's where the real fun and where you really learn the strategy of the game. And where kind of the negative side of it is too, but it's really not as toxic as some other games like World of Warships can be in their chat. Or, I mean, the developers here have taken great efforts to limit that interaction so that, you don't walk away mad, you have a good time, but some people will still make you mad. I mean, there have been some games where like, oh, come on, will you just get it over with? Just end the game. Why do you got to wipe all the cards off the table? At which point, I don't even give them the option anymore. I just go ahead and surrender. But, yeah, as you can see here, there's really some great interplay within the factions. And we're about approaching here the first 15 minutes of play. And I'm going to do a couple of these videos each, one addressing each of the particular factions here. And then you'll get to see Germany, Britain, Russia, and then I think Japan is the one I do last. But I think each video is going to kind of showcase each particular faction here. But I'm going to go ahead and get off here now. As you can see, here's your deck where you start. You get the US first, and you get your first 40 cards. And then the next video we'll come back and we'll actually see the gameplay. Alright, this is Ross Elgar, and you're watching a game review for Cards. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.